Hello Astro people, thanks for joining me. In this video I'm going to talk about Ceres and sort of food disorders, things around food and eating generally speaking. They're going to be in focus because Ceres at this moment is just moving out of Capricorn on her way into Aquarius on the 31st of January 2020. But let's have a quick look first at the astrology of today. The moon is just about to enter Pisces as I'm doing this. It's about 10 o'clock in the UK morning as I sit here right now. And 11:51 a.m. UK, that is 3:51 a.m. Pacific, really early, 6:51 a.m. Eastern, the moon is going to enter Aries and we'll start the cycle again. So definitely a time of new beginnings. Once that's happening up in the stars, it's bound to affect us from our perspective here. The moon right now is coming up to half full very slowly. She's 18.2% now. We reach first quarter not too long, 2nd of February, 01:41 a.m. UK time. So it's going to be earlier on the 1st of February in the States and Canada, much later on the 2nd of February elsewhere in the world. That's going to be first quarter, but the lunar energy is actually very limited at the moment. It's still a pretty good time for launching new things, just 18.2%. And if we take a look at the chart of today, what's happening, that moon is actually void in Pisces, for obvious reasons. By the time you're watching this, she will be in Aries, but you may have been aware of a very touchy-feely kind of time where people's feelings were very prominent in the last half a day or so, I would say, looking at when the void, of course, was. So passive-aggressive behaviour and attitudes haven't really been getting people anywhere, and they actually never do. The moon entering Aries isn't going to change that, but there we go. Mercury is void in Aquarius at the moment, and more about Aquarius in a minute because that's where Ceres is headed at the moment. So there's nervous energy, people's communications are going a little bit adrift, and strange weather patterns happening as well, all of which I talked about yesterday. What is different today, Venus is sextile Pluto, and that is opening up kind of social things. People are getting on with each other better, and friendships are actually taking people somewhere, which is really positive. It's not the easiest time for these things, just flat out easy, because Pluto is just like that. You sometimes get a sort of dark night before the dawn with Pluto, but you know, keep on going and things are looking actually really positive in terms of friendships and groups of people who work together for a mutual benefit. Anyway, let's get on to Ceres. That's what I really want to make this video about. And I'm doing this today of all days because she is going to be void in Capricorn and entering Aquarius on 31st of January, and that's going to be 2:49 a.m. UK. So actually it is tomorrow, Thursday the 30th in the States and Canada, much later on January the 31st, which is Friday in the rest of the world. That's also the day Britain leaves the European Union, but God, we don't want to start thinking about that if we can help it. Now, the thing about Ceres is that, well, she was discovered but in terms of modern astronomy by a priest, Giuseppe Piazzi, I've got his name here, a Sicilian priest who was from Palermo in 1801, and she was the first of the big asteroids to be discovered. They call her the Great Mother, actually, because she is the biggest of the asteroids that's out there in the asteroid belt. Technically a dwarf planet, a bit like Pluto. There's some sort of argument as to whether she's a planet or not, but for the purposes of this, we'll call her an asteroid. Now, that priest named her after Ceres, the Roman goddess of agriculture, which is also the Greek goddess Demeter, something like that. I'm never very good with pronunciations of names. But, you know, she really does kind of live up to that. There is usually some kind of food issue going on when Ceres becomes prominent. Also, as the Great Mother, there's a tale in Greek mythology about her daughter Persephone, and she found it really, really hard to let go of her daughter, and that it can be an issue for any parent, and it can be an issue for anyone, because we've all had parents, many of whom wouldn't have been keen on letting us go. It's a fact. There's a friend of mine now, really upset because his daughter's married someone and moved to China. Well, obviously that's not an easy place to be at the moment, but more than anything, it was a thought that he couldn't really sort of, have that much input into her life. And frankly, he couldn't be very controlling over her once she'd actually got married and gone to the other side of the world. Very difficult, but children will move on. I know I did, and I don't think my parents were too happy when I flew the nest. It's just, that's the way of people. It's a very hard thing to be rational about. I try to be open and just let my daughters do what they will now they've grown up, but I can't help worrying about them from time to time. That's the way. Sometimes that becomes overinflated, and the people who will sort of kind of over-mother their children, if you like, risk, bringing stifling activity into their lives, which is never a good thing. And that very often goes with some kind of eating disorder. And many of us who have any kind of eating disorder, when we look back, it actually comes from the home and the way things were done in the home. I called my channel Twig Brother. I've put a bit of weight on now, but a couple of years ago when I named my channel Twig Brother, it's because I was like a twig, I was like a rake, and it wasn't just my mother, it was my whole sort of family's thing, that it was a good thing to be very kind of obese, really. It was a sign of being prosperous and wealthy, really, and I guess that goes back to the 1920s, 1930s, when things were, times of depression, when there wasn't enough food to go around, that kind of thing. And so that would actually affect a great many of our families of this generation who are kind of going through life at the moment. It all goes back to then. And over time, I'm sure things smooth out. I'm sure things ease off. But Ceres, her symbol in astrology looks a lot like a scythe. It's kind of almost like a question mark facing the wrong way around. Well, it's very much the right way around for Ceres, with a little cross over the bottom. And so she is very much associated with food supply, as well as anything around eating disorders, and of course as well as that parental type of thing. Basically, an excess of Ceres, it depends where Ceres is in your birth chart. I'm always on about that. Do get a birth chart done if you haven't yet. All the big astrology websites will do you one. All you've got to do is type in your date of birth, time of birth, if you know it, and place of birth. And you do get a much stronger result if you know all three of those, actually. So do a bit of research if you have to. Get a birth chart done. Now, if Ceres is prominently placed in your birth chart, you're likely to be nurturing, caring, attentive to the needs of others, and actually quite balanced, although that can spill into that smothering pattern of being a real devouring mother or father, I guess, as well. Very sexist, these things, but they were written a long time ago. Ceres had a real hard time letting go of Persephone. That's what the tale of Ceres and Persephone is all about. If you've got a challenging aspect of Ceres in your birth chart, then low self-esteem is going to be an issue, and any kind of psychological impact coming from the mothering experience is going to be much harder to deal with. But do try and deal with it, friends. I think the great thing about astrology in this and just about any area is that it helps us to find explanations for, why we are the way we are. And, I don't want to be downbeat about this, but everybody's got something about them that they're not happy with, that they want to change. And the food issues are very strong and prominent with me. And I've only really worked that out now in my 50s and started eating quite a lot more, because once I got away from the family who wanted us to be so fat, I wouldn't say I starved myself, but I ate very, very little food, and it has had an effect on my health over the years. So now I'm much more careful to eat in a balanced way and to eat plenty every day. That is it's the nature of life. We're always trying to improve things, aren't we? And that's actually a great thing to do. And so any kind of food issues and familial issues around the family, are likely to be prominent at the present time. And then when Ceres actually enters Aquarius, which is essentially the 31st of January, if not maybe tomorrow, the Thursday, the 30th of January, sorry, miles away from my chart here, things are going to become more, there's going to be more assertiveness about there. people are less likely to just go along with the flow. So that brings in a possibility for change, because Aquarius is the sign in which has a lot to do with making your own mind up and sticking to it. It's kind of easy to do that when anything is going on in Aquarius. So particularly around that family thing, particularly around food, eating, anything like that, letting go issues as well come into it in a slightly lesser way. But, you know, letting go is something we've all got to learn to do. That is going to become a fair bit easier when Ceres is in Aquarius. It's also, you know, going to be a time when people analyse these things and think about these things. But really, you know, the best time for it is pretty much when Ceres actually enters into Aquarius. That is going to be the turning point. That is going to be the big moment. Ceres doesn't actually go retrograde until the 7th of July this year, so we've got plenty of time. She's not retrograde. She's full speed ahead, like all the planets are at the moment, actually. There is nothing at all retrograde now until Juno, who is another asteroid, a smaller one, but another asteroid. Juno is going to go retrograde on the 8th of February, but we've got ages before anything like that happens. Okay, guys, that's my little offering today. I'm planning to come back with some readings later, actually. And if anyone out there would like a psychic reading, a mediumship reading, a card reading, anything like that, do please give me a shout. 35and83@gmail.com. That's 35and83@gmail.com. And we can have a chat and sort something out in that direction, no doubt. Meanwhile, thumbs up please if you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thanks if you've subscribed already. It's much appreciated. I appreciate you watching. Leave me a comment, let me know what's going on, and I'll see you again very soon. Peace.